thank you for allowing me to join you guys tonight on your Friday evening. As we were just joking, what a great way for you to be able to spend your Friday evening. My name is Russell Davis. Some of you may have met me already, as I've conducted a couple different presentations in Kazakhstan and in Central Asia, and so you may have joined some of those previously. But I am the Director of Global Student Recruitment at Duke Kunshan University, which is Duke University, a university, top 10 university in the US. They now have a campus in China, and we are getting ready to recruit our 4th class. So we have 3 classes now. We continue to grow our community from Kazakhstan, which of course excites me so much. And so, yeah, so I love the opportunity to talk about application, and I know that, oops, get the slides working here. I know that one of the common topics that comes up is just extracurricular activities, and you know, that's an important part of the application, and it's just one of those parts of what I call the qualitative parts of the application. If you've heard me talk about the common application, you know, it's kind of divided into 2 sections: the quantitative side, which is your test scores, your academics, how you do in high school, your transcript, and then the qualitative side, which is all the other stuff. It's your essays, it's your extracurricular activities, it's the recommendations that we get, teacher evaluations, and those are what I call the qualitative. And those, they don't stand alone. They you know, the best applications, you know, what I call themes, and you'll hear me use that word quite a bit tonight. Themes should run through those sections of your application. And so the extracurricular activity is a section of the application that gives the admissions committee insight into those things that you enjoy doing, that you have done, that are outside of your regular school. It's outside the sitting in the classroom, it's outside the homework, and it's outside the studying. It's those things that you're getting involved in that are outside of that. And I'm going to talk tonight about several things. So what I'm going to talk about is, you know, what types of activities are there? You know, how do you complete the section? What are schools looking for? Why is this section important as part of the application? Now, I know a frequent, and I'm actually, if it's okay, so I don't keep distracting myself, I'm going to turn off my video now, but now you will only hear me. But when we get to the end and I do Q&A, I will bring back the video. So, you know, one of the things I hear frequently in not just Kazakhstan, but in other countries is, what if I have limited opportunities? What if there just aren't many opportunities to get involved in what are called extracurricular activities? But when you hear me start to talk about what are these types of activities, you're going to learn that there's a lot of different things that qualify as extracurricular activities. And it certainly doesn't just have to be attached to school and facilitated through your school. So, you know, what if I have limited opportunities, and do family activities and work count? And then another frequent question I get, topic is, what if I haven't won something? What if I'm not the best at something? You know, do my activities, can they still be good? And then the other question, and Roshan sent me a list of questions from, you know, that many of you posed as you registered for this event. And I saw a theme, which was, well, during the pandemic, what do I do now? And so I literally at the last minute, I added this final section called COVID-19 and extracurricular activities. So once I get through this, you know, well, first of all, you'll see a chat box. So everybody should see, probably is very familiar with Zoom. You know that there's a chat box. You are welcome to enter questions into chat. And then I will answer questions at the end of the presentation. And I will also look at the questions that I was sent yesterday or the day before, whenever I got them. And I'll go through those and see if there's some others that maybe I didn't answer in the presentation. But to get started, you know, what are the different types of activities? Well, the reality is there are many different types of activities. So when you go into the actual Common Application, you'll see that there are many different categories of activities to choose from. You'll see types that include academics, arts, athletics. They can be career oriented, community service, and then kind of specific areas like computer technology, environmental, debate, speech, journalism, research, student government and politics, theater, family responsibilities, and work paid, like, is going to be one of the things I talk about in a little bit. The point is, you are going to see many different types of activities that count as extracurricular, that the admissions committee puts value on. So, when you're thinking about which category, I mean, the bottom line is you want to pick the category that makes the most sense to you. And of course, they have the other. So if you don't find a category that works well for you, you can just choose the other and then give more information. And then, in some cases, you will also see that the activity may fit into more than one category. So in this case, you're going to want to pick the most relevant, but you can also be strategic. Maybe you want to show some diversity of interests, that show you have, more than just one deep interest. And so you might choose another category so that it reflects maybe a little bit more diversity. So that's, there's an element of being strategic about the category that you might pick. Now, so how do you complete this section? Well, essentially, they're going to want certain information. They're going to, the first thing, of course, you need to do is pick the appropriate category, and then you'll indicate the grade or grades in which you participated in that activity. You're going to name the organization and give insight into your role. So you'll use whether it's participant, vice president, volunteer, treasurer. You'll give insight into what your actual role was, and then you'll have a chance to do a short description of the organization, which can also include the mission of the organization or what the organization does. And you can also include and describe your role or maybe even your impact. But you do have a limited amount of space here, so you have to be very concise. And then the other thing, and this is something that we actually look at, is the time commitment. How many hours a week were you involved in this activity? And how many weeks in a year were you involved in this activity? We know that there's only a certain amount of hours in every week. And that, we know that you've got school, we know that you've got homework. And so, sometimes students will maybe exaggerate a little bit about how many hours they actually did something. And if we see that there's a ridiculous number of hours that the student said that they were involved in this activity, sometimes that raises a little bit of questions. So you want to be, try to do the math and be as accurate as possible when you're indicating how much time did you spend on these activities, and don't overestimate so that when the application reader does the math, they're like, wait a minute, that's a lot of hours. I don't know how they're able to get all those things done. So, my advice is just be as accurate as you can about the amount of time that you spent doing that particular activity. So here's a very important section. Here's a very important slide, which I want to talk about. What do colleges look for? Now, colleges like to see, I'm going to use that word again, themes. They like to see themes in your application. So it's not just a theme in the extracurricular activities and those things you've been involved in, but ultimately they're looking for those key themes that lets them know, what are those things that are important to you? And so when you are listing all of your different activities, ideally we're going to see maybe some areas where there might be some focus. And so this is the section that really helps you to tell your story. It launches your story. So when I review, and this is just to give you some insight into how an application gets reviewed, when we open a common application, we see things in order. So the order that we see them in is obviously we see the student name, we see your biographical information, we know where you're from, and then we see, you know, your family information, we see your school information, then we see any achievements that you might have entered or included, maybe some honors, and then we get to your extracurricular activities. And so that's really the first time we're looking at those things that you're really interested in and involved in. And then after that, it comes the essays. So it's actually the extracurricular activities that come first, and then the essays. And then in separate documents, we see the teacher evaluations and the recommendations. So when I read an application, I see the extracurricular activities. I get a sense of what the student is interested in. What are those activities? I start to see, oh, you know, they did these activities for a long period of time. They must really care about those. I may see some themes. I may see several things related to the arts, to music, to athletics. I start to see some themes. And so I've seen the interests, I've seen the list, then I go into the essays, and then I'm like, okay, well, what are they going to tell me? What am I going to learn more? What are those things that are most important to the student? And so this is and then of course the recommendations and the teacher evaluations, they can continue to give additional insight and perspective. And that's what I mean by themes, those things that are most important to you, what you want the admissions committee to really know about you. What are those most important elements of your story? That's what we're looking for. And the extracurricular activities start to give us insight into that. So you can use this section to help tell your story. You can demonstrate depth of commitment to one particular interest, or maybe two particular interests. You can use this section to start to highlight what those themes are, those key things you want the application reader to take away from reading your ultimate application. Now, you can have multiple activities that reflect a similar interest. For example, you know, maybe you're somebody who really looks for opportunities to have an impact is a theme. Maybe you're mentoring. Maybe you're a teacher's assistant. You know, maybe you're working with kids. You know, that's an example of a theme. Or maybe you have activities that include some of the you know, you may have more than one activity that includes some of the following. Maybe it's environmental, community service, student government, politics, even family responsibilities. All of these are good examples of maybe impact, high impact as a theme. So the application reader will see this theme, and this may become a major theme for you in your application, which you choose to elaborate on in your essays. So whether it's the Common App essay, or maybe it's the school-specific essay, or maybe it's the supplemental essay, or maybe you do it in some way using those various essays. And then, of course, you can even have the teachers who maybe highlight that passion of yours. So this is what I mean by themes. We're going to see, you know, not every extracurricular activity you have, you know, because you may have diverse interests, they might not all be highlighted, but ultimately you want to identify those one or two key themes, and extracurricular activities is a good place for us to start to see it. And then you'll give us more insight to what the key most important things are you want us to take away. So other example, maybe you love science, or you excelled in math or physics, and you also have an interest in robotics or artificial intelligence. So these are, you know, you could probably pull, there's a theme here. Or maybe you enjoy performing. Maybe you play music, you sing, you play an instrument. Maybe you perform in theater, or speech or debate. So you can see how you could pull a theme through these different categories, these different types of activities. When multiple categories are used to reflect related interests, it really highlights your depth and your passion for that interest and how you seek to fulfill it, you seek to do it through different activities. So this is essentially, when we first look at those extracurricular activities, this is where we start to get a sense of what's important to you. What do you enjoy doing? And of course, that also informs the unique perspective that you bring, because we are absolutely looking for your perspective. What is your perspective? What is that perspective you're going to bring into our community? Now, whatever those key themes are that you want to highlight, when you've listed those in the section, this is when you want to use, once you've identified the key themes, you're going to use the other elements of the application to give deeper insight. I always say the application is full of whats. I did this. I was the president of this. I contributed to this. I took part in this. That's the list. Those are the whats. But what is really helpful to the admissions committee is when you give the insight, the why, the how behind the what. What inspired your interest? Why did you get interested in it? Why do you love doing it? Are there certain skills that you developed and learned along the way? Maybe this interest is something that you want to continue, and it has inspired you to pursue an interest or major in university, or maybe in a career. So the list is helpful, but then the other elements of the application, particularly the essays, that's where you get to give us that additional insight that helps us really understand why the activity, why the theme is important to you. And that's when we really feel like we get to know you. We really want to see that. Now, you may have achievements. You may have some achievements in the other section of your application that are related to your activities, that are related to some of those activities. Maybe you were awarded a scholarship related to the interest, or you won or medaled in a competition related to an interest. This just simply reinforces the depth of commitment to the interest, and it also gives us, hey, this person's really good at this too. And again, another example, if this is the case, you're probably going to have a teacher tell us about it too. And so not only are we going to see that you're really good at something, but we're also going to see that you really have a passion for it as well. And so this is what's really helps. This is why this section is so important, because it really helps start the story, gives us the insight into what are those things you're doing. And then you have to use other parts of the application to give us more insight to the things that are most important to you. But what I will tell you is, I also get the frequently asked question. I don't have a lot of activities that I've been involved in. No, quantity is not as important as quality. We'd actually rather see a shorter list with deeper and longer commitment, or a key theme, a real key theme come out, than just a long list of various activities that you maybe didn't do for an extent, you didn't do for very long periods of time. A combination, a good mix of those is fine, but we really do put value on deeper commitment to less activities than many activities without a very deep commitment. All right, so, what do they look for? We touched on, so let's touch on why are these activities important? So this section, again, lets the application reader see your other interests. How are you spending your time? And it starts to give insight into your unique perspective. It also demonstrates to the committee that you know how to balance your time across activities. And this is important. Time management is a nice skill to be developing at a young age, and universities do put value. It's a nice soft skill. And so in particular, if you've got various responsibilities, you're doing activities, you've got your school, maybe you're also have some responsibilities at home where you're helping take care of brothers and sisters or grandparents. Maybe you're working because you're contributing to, you need to contribute money to your family. And so if you've got several different things you're doing at once, that lets the admissions committee know that, wow, this person has good time management skills and is also responsible, has real responsibilities. When I read your application, I already mentioned that I read the bio first, then I go into it, get to your essays, followed by recommendations, which are second rounds. So this is where we have a chance to really start to see those key themes as a result of just starting with those extracurricular activities. It also demonstrates that you're well-rounded, and that, as a student, that you're not just going to be focused on schoolwork and maybe finding the job or getting into a graduate school. Schools want to admit well-rounded students, that you are going to get involved in the entire university experience, which means you'll be a contributor to the community, but it also means you're going to grow to your potential. You're going to develop really important skills that happen outside the classroom. So it's a good indication that you are more likely to get involved in activities at university. You'll make more of the experience and be a good contributor to that university community. Then when you get to the school essay, or maybe in the supplemental essay, you can connect. This is another opportunity. You can connect your interest to the university, which is always a good thing. Many schools have that additional school-specific essay. And if you've ever heard me talk about writing essays or the common application, when you always want to, where possible, make a connection to the university and highlight something distinctive about that university, so that you can make that case for, I'm really interested in you, and I've done my homework. So for example, maybe you have a passion for robotics. And so you've done your homework, and you know that the school that you're applying to, and you have to write a school specific essay, they have a specific program or opportunity that allows you to continue your interest in robotics. They have a great robotics program. And always be specific when you name those things, when you write those essays. Say exactly what that program is. So it really demonstrates that you have an interest, a reason for wanting to be at that school. And schools love to see it, trust me, that you've done your homework and are making your case for that school. So when you have that key theme, you have that definite interest, that you've had a passion for, and then when you bring it forward and mention how you can continue that at the university, that's always a good thing. And that's, again, how you thread interests, themes across the different various parts of the application. All right, so what if I have limited opportunities? Oops, sorry. Okay, so what if you have limited opportunities through your school? And we know not all countries offer the same opportunities. They don't all treat extracurricular activities the same. And so, admissions committees understand that not every country provides those same opportunities. For example, as in the US, where there are just so many different opportunities for students to take advantage of that are facilitated through the school. But remember, your activities do not have to be facilitated through your school. What are you doing outside of school is equally important. So when you go back to that long list of all the different categories, you're going to see that many have potential to be done outside of school. So when you look at those categories, you'll see things such as community service, research, religious, working, and family responsibilities. All of those are categories, and they're included, so they all count. What will be important is that you demonstrate that you do something, that you have some interests or responsibilities that are important to you. And then you give the insight into why it's important to you, and where possible, how have you grown as a result of it? And then how will you continue it? How will you take it forward? What you do and how well you do it isn't as important as why you do it, okay? So, we're not as interested in what you're doing as we are why you're doing it. Why did you get excited about it? Why is it important to you? And that's where things like family responsibilities. Those are going to be important to you. And it's important for you to contribute to your family. These are things that absolutely count. So quality will always be more important, as I've said earlier, than quantity. The depth of interest is more important, and the amount of time dedicated to it. You know, there are only so many hours in the week. We get that. We know that. All right, so what about family and work? I've already touched on it several times. They have their own categories. So yes, they absolutely count. And I see this often. I see it, you know, I recruit internationally and I recruit across Central Asia, across Eastern Europe, in the US. Even in the US, we see kids that have significant responsibilities, students that have significant responsibilities at home, helping support their family. So these absolutely count. Admissions committees understand that students, they have personal commitments and responsibilities, helping to take care of, like I said, brothers or sisters at home because both parents are working, or maybe they have, you know, they're in a single parent family. Maybe they need to contribute financially to the family, or they're helping take care of other family members, grandparents. These actually are very important, and they really demonstrate some important things to the admissions committee. They demonstrate that you have important responsibilities, that you have maturity and accountability, responsibilities, and you're able to manage time. You know, you're a full-time student. You're doing other things that are really important at home, and I promise all of these are valued by the AdCom. Now, as I mentioned, there are only so many hours in the week, and if you are spending 20 hours a week taking care of a younger brother or sister or working at a job, you know, and combine that with the amount of time you spend at school and doing homework, we know that you only get left with so much time to contribute to your other activities. So if you've got those types of commitments, we're absolutely going to understand if you have limited opportunities to be doing other things that you might categorize more as those extracurricular activities. But I will add that you will get some extra credit if you're still managing to get involved in other things, whether it's school related or unrelated to school. You know, of course, you know, just know, and I guess this is a good point to kind of remind you that, you know, the application, all the different components are important. And so even if you're one of those students who just doesn't have a lot to bring forward, you know, you haven't done a lot, and you know, and it is what it is. Know that you can bring up this section by other elements of your application. So just because you don't have a really great list of extracurriculars and really deep themes and all of that, it doesn't mean you still can't put together a competitive application. But, you know, there are things that can make an application stand out and be stronger. And one is, if you're really balancing, you know, you found a way to really balance and make the most of your time, make the most of your week. All right. So another question I get frequently is, I haven't won any competitions. I'm not the best swimmer. You know, I haven't won any national awards, any Olympiads. Is that going to hurt my chances? So students, you know, yes, students can distinguish themselves by winning a significant competition, whether it is an academic related Olympiad or some type of debate or sports or whatever. You can distinguish yourself certainly, and add that, hey, not only are they really interested in it, they're pretty good at it too, but you don't have to be the best at something, you know, or win significant competitions for the activity to still bring value to your application. You know, what I will add again, and I'll say it again, is what will bring the most value is when the admissions committee gets the insight into why the activity. Why did you do it? How did you get interested in it? How did you grow from it? What did you learn from it? How does it bring you satisfaction or gratification? And, you know, does it impact others? You know, are the things that you really care about, are they impactful, and are they bringing value to others? That you get bonus points for that. This is the insight that really helps the AdCom get to know you. And if you do a good job connecting the activities and interests that are most important to you, and in highlighting those themes, I said you're going to hear that word a lot. That is how the AdCom gets excited. The admissions committee gets excited because now they feel like they really understand who you are as a person, what your unique perspective is, because that's your job, and that you can bring value to their community. Another frequent question or comment I'll get is, I don't see that I'm very different from my classmates. I'm from Kazakhstan, I'm from Almaty or Nur-Sultan or wherever. And, I feel like, my friends, my classmates or other applicants, I don't feel like I'm very different from who they are. But what I will tell you is all of you are absolutely unique. It's your job to bring forward what your unique perspective is. Now, we know that, your culture is going to impact your perspective. And yes, you do share a culture, but it's the experiences that are unique to you. It's the interests that are unique to you. It's your passions that are unique to you. And then again, the motivation behind them, the why behind them, the inspiration for them. Those are how you distinguish yourself and differentiate yourself. And that's how you become unique. And that's how you bring forward your uniqueness. And so every single one of you, the experiences that you've had, the interests and passions that you have are unique to you when you combine all of those together. All right. So let's talk, before I get to questions, let's talk about extracurricular activities during the pandemic. So with the pandemic, how businesses, how universities, likely the way that you're learning this year, school, how you're getting support from Education USA, it is all changing, right? We now live in a virtual world, and everything we're doing is what I call pivoting. We use this term a lot, pivot, which means all of these businesses, all of these industries are pivoting. And what this means is we are shifting. We're shifting how we do business. So for example, in my office, in my admissions office, normally this time of the year, we would be preparing for all our travels, traveling around the world. I would be there in person. I would be meeting with you. And I would be getting to know you, introducing my university to you and learning about you. So that's what we would be doing. And then I would be traveling most of the fall. Well, guess what? We're not doing any of that. We're not hosting students as visitors on our campus. We are now relying all on virtual activities. So how we do business is different. How you do business is going to be different. That includes how you get involved in things. How do you continue your interests? This is all now going to be different. Now, hopefully, just like my job, it doesn't mean we stop doing our job. Hopefully, it doesn't mean you stop everything. Hopefully, you will be able to continue some of your interests. But remember, we're not just looking at what you're doing this year, we're looking at what you've done previously as well. And if you're able to find ways, find opportunities to continue, excuse me, need to drink a sip of water. Excuse me. So, you've had interests that you've been doing up to the pandemic. Ideally, you've found a way, been creative to continue some of those interests, or at least if it's not the specific interests, find ways to do things that still satisfy you and gratify you in those ways that are important to you. So remember, we're not just looking at what you were doing this year, we're looking at what you've done over the course of your high school years. Now, admissions committees understand, we absolutely understand that the pandemic is having a dramatic impact on students, on opportunities, on applications in many ways. One, you can't take tests, right? You can't, many of you probably won't have access to an SAT or an ACT. And that's why my university and many universities are now not requiring an SAT or ACT this year. Maybe you can't travel, and again, your activities are impacted. We get it, we understand it, we know it. and they're not going to hold that against you. But those who go the extra effort during this difficult time to continue bringing value, doing something they love, you will get bonus points. So this is your time to be creative and look for those opportunities to bring value to others. So what are some examples? So what can you do to be a positive contributor during this time? I mean, think about how people are being impacted by this. Many people are feeling isolated. You've got people who aren't able to leave their house, whether it's a requirement or maybe there's somebody who, for health reasons, they're at a higher risk. So you've got people who are feeling isolated. You have teachers who are probably getting frustrated. They're trying to figure out, how do I teach my students now? You may have classmates who are struggling, because now you're learning online. You have, the older generation, grandparents, our seniors, as we call them. Maybe they need some extra help and support. My point is, there are plenty of opportunities for you to do something that could make a difference. And if you can find these ways to do those things, that's a great way for you to differentiate yourself from the competition. Extracurricular activities are just one part of the application. I really want to make that point. And so they shouldn't stand alone. They should be connected to those other elements of your application, your essays, your recommendations, and maybe even those achievements. But again, don't just make a list of the activities, or what's, as I call them. Bring those ones that are most important to you to life and help the admissions committee understand why they are important to you and how they contribute to your unique perspective. And this is how the admissions committee really gets to know you as a person. That's when they get excited about you.